Hello, everybody, and welcome to JFK's World, the podcast where I interview really cool entrepreneurs that I know doing really cool things. Today's episode is no different. I have an old friend of mine from high school, Melissa Maher. Melissa is a life coach and energy healer, and she does not disappoint when it comes to sharing her experiences as an entrepreneur and her journey and dropping some really good information for those of you that are aspiring entrepreneurs, and some really good information around what it takes, mindset, and really getting after the goals and what your dreams are. And what she truly believes in is in with all of us to really follow your passions and follow your dreams. So this is episode 11. Thank you very much for being a listener. Thank you very much for being a follower. And I really hope you enjoy it. I know I enjoyed reconnecting with Melissa, and I think that you'll get a lot of value out of this episode. So let's jump into the podcast, and we'll see you on the other side. Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the podcast. I have an amazing guest with us today, someone that I've known for a very long time. Melissa, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So let's dive right in. Why don't you let the listeners know what you are all about and your entrepreneurial endeavors?
Yes, thank you. So I began my entrepreneurial journey where I am right now about 9 years ago. It all kind of happened by fluke, if you will. I began working in alternative holistic medicine, which for some, I kind of just leave it very chunked up that way because some people are like, what does that mean? But I'm an energy healer and spiritual guide. My journey with this path has evolved over the years. I first became like a life coach back in 2014. Yeah, so just in my own self-development and healing journey, energy work came into my life. And so I started to explore this a little bit. And for those who are not necessarily familiar with what energy work is we kind of work within the realm of quantum physics, where we can adjust, different energy. We have our physical body, yes, but we also have an energetic body. And that energetic body can store a lot of stuff. And sometimes when we're stuck in life, it may not just be, something in our mind. It may not be something in our physical. It could be something in our energetic field. And so I've learned to tune in and track and help maneuver energy so that people can feel fully aligned with their hearts, with their higher self, like so that they could just go out there and live their best life. So yeah, that's kind of how it started for me. It's a deeply personal journey because, as I shared, it started with my own healing path, and it's just been beautiful over the last 9 years.
Excellent. Okay, so I always like to pause here to go back. I love hearing my entrepreneur friends, their origin stories. So we are from the same neighborhood. We went to high school together, right? So, but for the listeners, why don't you take it back and tell us a little bit about your origin story and take us through kind of what led you right up until you decided to become an entrepreneur?
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. So um, back in the days, because we're a little older now, we can say
I
that.
know. Oh my gosh, it's so true.
In the days, I feel like I was a person in high school, like when we knew each other, I was really just kind of lost. I really just was like, I don't know what I want to do in my life. I don't know who I want to be. And for me, a lot of it was like I was just working jobs. Like I had some really cool jobs. My big chunk of my employment life started at 18. So just towards the end of high school, I started working at the ACC in Toronto, and I worked there for 11 plus years.
Cool.
It was amazing. Like I had the coolest job. I got to do all the kinds of things. I worked in security there, so it was
Okay.
a vast contrast from the work that I do now. Um, but yeah, as I watched life unfold and I watched all the people in my life from high school friends, all that kind of stuff, like going on and pursuing careers or like, doing all the other things. I was just kind of like, oh, I'm just working this job. I was never really motivated to find the career path.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, and to me, there's a difference in it. You know, we can work jobs and stuff like that, but it's not necessarily like a career that we're like connected to or passionate about or anything like that. So yeah, I was working these jobs and I loved them. They were fun. They were great. I got to do like every concert. I was working NBA and NHL games. Like it was really amazing. But it wasn't necessarily fulfilling me. So at a certain point, it was just it was about a month after I turned 30. I was still working at the ACC, and also I was working at the Royal York Hotel. I was at a crossroad, you know, like those birthdays that have zeros or fives at the
Yes.
end, like can really be a thing. And I was like, I'm doing a thing. Like I'm 30 now, and what do I want for myself? And very interestingly, the very next month after I turned 30, somebody approached me at the gym. I was working out with this trainer, and he was one of the trainers at the gym. And he came over to me with a handful of all these like wellness vitamins and products. And he was like, Melissa, I want you to try these things. And he offered me these liquid nutrition drinks. And it was from a company called Vima. And they were brand new in Canada. And it was a network marketing company. And I took home some of these products and I actually really loved them. Like they were so good. Yeah, he was like, yeah, there's a business opportunity attached with this. Do you want to hear about it? You know, like that whole
Right. Yeah.
government and network marketing can be a little awkward and annoying. But I was like, I really like the stuff. So I'm like, yeah, sure. So I went out to an event because I loved the products, because I loved the vibe. I was like, I'm absolutely going to get involved with this. So my beginning on this path actually did start through network marketing.
Okay.
I worked within that company for a couple of years. I loved their products. I had built a small team, was doing pretty good. But the thing that was the pivotal point with that part of the journey was I was being mentored directly underneath Bob Proctor's wife, Linda Proctor. And so, for those of you who may are familiar with the personal development world, Bob Proctor was a legend. He was, you know, teaching about the conscious and unconscious mind for over 50 years. He's since deceased, but he's a legend in the field. And I got like direct mentorship from him
Wow.
and his wife, and it was like, holy moly. And so for me, I was like, I always knew about the self-help IELTS chapters, but I didn't know that there was like a whole industry behind personal development,
Right.
like seminars, workshops. And I was like a kid in a candy store because again, like I was at that point in my life where I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but here's an opportunity and it felt really good. And I just went with it. And that's when I got introduced to the mindset stuff. And
Okay.
I studied with Proctor for a few years. I learned a whole bunch of other things. Another mentor came into my life named Gina Mullican Long, who is a master trainer of NLP in Canada. And that's when I started to learn NLP, which is stands for neuro linguistic programming,
Right.
which really like highlights like the way that we think, the language that we use, how it all dictates our behaviors and everything, which served me greatly on my path as an entrepreneur because you have to have a certain type of mindset as an entrepreneur. You know, I love when people want to start out in entrepreneurship. And I also feel like it takes a certain type of person to be able to do it because you have to face all the hard stuff and be willing to go through it.
Yes.
So that really helped me. So yeah, so I dabbled in network marketing for a couple of years. It was amazing. I made some like soul family connections from it, like some really great stuff. But then, you know, like it kind of gets to a point like network marketing, you have to be really in it for the long run.
Right.
And the company ended up leaving Canada. Um, the team that I was on ended up switching to another company that I just didn't fully feel aligned with, and that was the end.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but then it was like, okay, so I have all these other skill sets around mindset, learning from Bob Proctor, and so I decided to start a coaching business. Very early off, it was just kind of like, you know, like that toddler learning how to walk. It's like, what do I do? How do I do this? And
Right.
I have really funny stories about the beginning of like, you know, how green I was. Um,
And
but
I know that the
yeah,
coaching, so did you get a certification like with NLP and to become like a certified life coach?
yeah. So I studied with Gina Mullican Long. I did my practitioner level with her. And I was actually working with her as an assistant kind of part-time, which was kind of cool. So I did get certified eventually I moved on to being a master practitioner. I did the master practitioner a couple of years later, which basically just offers you like a ton of tools and resources that you can use for yourself and you can use with your clients. And it
Oh,
kind of gave you a bit of structure of like how to like run a session and do all that kind of stuff. So
oh,
yeah.
cool. Okay, so before I get into kind of starting your entrepreneurial journey, so you said something that sparked my curiosity, and this is just personally for me. So you mentioned working at the ACC.
Yeah.
One of my previous guests was a friend of ours, Latoya. So did you
Mhm.
see her? Because I know that she was part of the
We
Raptors
see each
Dance
other
Pack. So
sometimes.
would you guys see
Yep.
each other at the ACC?
Yep. 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 We would see each other sometimes. I was not there when she got proposed to, but I've
Right.
seen the video.
That, I
But
mean,
yeah, we would run into each other.
small world, right? Like just, kids from Mississauga doing big things in Toronto. So
Amazing. It was so cool. Like there's so many amazing stories there and the people that I got to connect with there too. Like some of them I'm still in touch with. And actually I'm just remembering right now Jay Triano, who was one of the coaches years ago. I don't remember his timeline that he was a coach, but he got to carry the Olympic torch. And
right.
I have a photo of me holding the Olympic torch because he was my homeboy. We'd see each other, just say hi, like how's it going? He'd like when I saw the thing, I was like, oh my gosh, may I please? And of course, he let me hold it. It was really cool.
Right on. Awesome. Amazing. Okay. So what I found with a lot of entrepreneurs is that there's always like a moment, whether it's a conversation they have with themselves, a conversation they have with loved ones, just some internal thoughts. So talk to me about, did you have like a single moment you can remember where you decided to go all in on yourself and what you were doing, and what was that like?
Yeah, so when I think about that, I mean, I know I've had several of those moments, and the moment that stands out the most where it was like really from the beginning was at the point of like being in network marketing. So this is before I started my own practice,
Okay.
but being in network marketing and really realizing that I don't want to work a job anymore. And I was in San Diego at the airport coming back home after an event that we had gone to. And I wrote an email to my boss. At this point, I was not at ACC anymore. I was only at the Royal York Hotel. And I wrote an email to my boss and just said, I'm not coming back. Here's my 2 weeks notice. Because at that point, I recognized I don't want to work a job. Now, I will share this. And for anybody that's listening that wants to start a journey in entrepreneurship, quitting your job too early can be really stressful. And as much as that was a deciding point for me to go all in, it was actually a point that was a bit of a pain point for me because I left my job too early. And I got into a space of survival mode essentially because I didn't have the steady income coming in while I was trying to build my income with my business. And so I always tell people if you are starting a side hustle and you have a job, stay in your job as long as you can. Like basically, when it's costing you more to be at your job than it is to be in your business, that's a good point to transition. Because when we transition too early, it's just going to be a lot of pressure. That's at least what happened to me. Now, for some people, back against the wall could be really, really beneficial too. Like, burn the bridge, let's cross. That can be okay for some people. And I think you just have to know yourself of how you best operate. And for me, back against the wall was not the right way to operate. And so I kind of struggled as I transitioned out of working a job into the business and stuff like that. So that's my 2 cents
No, that's
there
that.
about.
Thank you. Thank you for being so open and honest with that, because I think a lot of people don't hear the learnings from other entrepreneurs often enough. They focus more on the positive. So thank you. No, that's great. But then, so it comes to kind of something that we were talking about before the podcast, and that's around the mindset of an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? So talk to me about a little bit about, who did you have to become in order to succeed as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a constant becoming. Every level in your business, every up level that you're going to, you have to become a new version of yourself. And in the beginning, I had to be somebody who really believed in herself. A lot of my experience growing up was I would seek external approval and validation. And so when it came to entrepreneurship, it was like I saw the vision, I felt the call. Particularly in my scenario, there was a calling. It wasn't like I woke up one day and it's like, I'm going to be an energy healer or a life coach. It was literally like, God was putting me in a place to serve, to use my life to help other people. And so, there's this element of a calling that I had to learn to listen and trust. And so there was a deep part of me that had to trust the vision that I had. And so for people who have these great ideas and want to create a business, or you have this like thing that's going to change the world, or maybe it's not even going to change the world, but it's going to change your life. Like you have to believe in that. You have to believe in yourself, because these visions that are given to us, these ideas that are given to us are divinely guided. It's for us to show up and take action on them. So trusting myself was something that I really had to develop. And another thing too was like getting really uncomfortable, like being okay being uncomfortable. Because entrepreneurship, you're going to have to do uncomfortable things. You're going to have to do cold calls and like call up people, or you're going to have to like ask for things. Like you and I being here right now was an ask of mine. Like it was like,
Yes.
hey, I add some value. And it can be uncomfortable to learn to ask for things. But it's definitely a skill set as an entrepreneur. You have to develop, because yeah, we can do the solopreneur thing, and there's some things that there's some industries and some businesses where it's you and you alone. But we were talking about too is like developing connections, building relationships. These are all valuable things as an entrepreneur. So a lot of it had to be like, attached to my vision. Yes, why am I doing this? What is the purpose behind this for me? And holding on to that and just following through. I've had to learn so many things that I was not good at before, and I use air quotes,
Right. Yeah.
you know. But learning these things, and also too, I'm just remembering right now, one of my favorite business mentors, Gary Vee, says, you know, bet on your strengths and delegate the rest. So learning what you're good at and learning what you're not good at is a skill set you have to develop as an entrepreneur too, because there are some things you're just not going to be good at, and that's okay. And we have to learn to delegate that stuff, to be like, hey, I'm not the graphics person. I need to hire somebody who's going to do that, or whatever the case is. But yeah, there's such a grit, there's such a perseverance, there's such a humbleness that comes with being an entrepreneur, because you will be faced with lots of no's, lots of rejections, and you have to get okay with that, because that's part of the path.
Right. Yeah, and I love Gary Vee too. Yeah, he's like quadruple down on that thing that you're good at. No, that's
Yeah.
amazing. But yeah, no, this podcast happened organically, right? You reached out to your network, and although we hadn't spoken personally in years, when you
Mm,
were looking, I was like, "Hey, yeah, I have a podcast. Like, yeah, let's connect. I'd love
yeah.
to." So you never like, if you don't ask, you're never going to get a yes, right? So
Well, the answer will always be no. And that is literally something that I say to myself sometimes before I go in for a big ask. I'll be like, if you don't ask right now, your answer is automatically no.
that's awesome. That's amazing. Okay, so um, let's talk about, so starting out, did you say 2014 was when you started your practice, or
This,
was
yeah, yeah, it was around 2014.
okay, so what was that first 6 months to a year like to give, it's not all roses, I'm sure, but kind of talk about your journey through that first little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. I was laughing about it just the other day because I just passed the 9-year anniversary. Um, yeah, so again, being very blessed with community. I was connected with a woman who had a space up in Yorkville. So she had a wellness clinic in Yorkville. Her name's Maher, my beautiful Brazilian mother. And she was connected to me by somebody that I knew from the network marketing company. Fabiana, another beautiful Brazilian woman. And she connected me with Guilmar because she knew that she had a space and I was just starting out this practice. And so I met with Guilmar, and Guilmar was more than generous. And oh, like bless her heart, she started me off so well. And she was like, come, you can have the space 1 day a week. I will not charge you in the beginning because I know you're just starting out. And I had a space. And so I literally was like, I would just invite people to come in the beginning. I would just be like, come. I just wanted to be in the energy of my practice. And so I was inviting people for free sessions. I was like, come see my space, come have a session, just to get me in the space of like, I'm actually doing this. So yeah, it was really great. And then when I started to charge people for sessions, it was so funny, James. Oh my gosh. So typically with a session, when I'm with a client, I'm with them for 1 hour. On average, they're on the table receiving the energy work for anywhere in between 20 to 40 minutes. Well, I was charging just for the time that they were on the table.
Okay.
And so I was charging like $40 a session. And Guilmar turned to me one day and she's like, Melissa, she's like, honey, you charge for your time. Like, you charge for your whole time, not just for when they're on the table. And I was like, really? It was just like a moment of like, oh my God. Like, I was a little embarrassed because I was like, I've been just like thinking that it's just about the moment that they're on the table and what they're receiving from there. But she really showed me like, no, like you're preparing. I prepare myself before a session. So I'm taking time before. I'm spending time engaging with them, connecting with them. I give them the treatment. And then at the end, it's like we debrief and we kind of like, share. Um, like it was so funny to me. So there was a lot of like little rookie mistakes like that, or learning, not necessarily mistakes, that kind of led me to like really like ground into what does it actually look like to have a practice? How do I do this stuff? Like back then too, it was like I had paper files.
Right.
Like I was old school. I'm like paper files, and like I had all these file folders, and like what do I do with all of this? And so there was this like organic learning that unfolded to like almost like automate myself, but like how do I become the most efficient in this? Because paperwork and all this kind of stuff. So eventually I moved to like online booking systems and like all these kinds of things. But yeah, it's kind of funny to see the beginning parts and just how green I was.
Awesome. No, I mean, it's the journey that everyone has to go through. And I want to ask you this now because you've touched on a few key people in your life. So mentorship is a word that comes up a lot with entrepreneurs. So if you just, can you talk a little bit about what having a mentor or mentors has meant to you in your journey?
Oh my gosh, I would not be the person I am today without the mentors that came into my life. Um, you know, Simple things like the guidance around, no, you charge your whole time, not just for the time that they're on the table. I could have been doing that for a few years if she didn't tell me that.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, mentorship to me, and I'm very, very blessed with the people that have come, like to be mentored by Bob Proctor, Lindo Proctor, even his daughter Colleen. Colleen and I had a very close relationship. Um, that is worth every ounce of time, money, and energy you will ever invest in yourself as an entrepreneur, is to align yourself with mentors who are the right mentors for you. You want to find a mentor that has a few steps ahead of you. Back in the days too, they used to say like, find the person that has what you want and do what they do. You know. Now, I would add to that too, it's very nuanced. I think that some people have skill sets that are their gifts that may not be your gifts. So don't be too hard on yourself if your mentor is like, wake up at 5 a.m. every day and you can't. I think there's know your limit, play with it
Right.
kind of thing there. Um, but yeah, mentorship, it supports you because it's like somebody who's there, who's going to guide you. And when your real life human stuff shows up, because it will, it's like they can throw the buoy out to grab you and reel you back in when you're about to drown. They're not necessarily going to like pull up the speedboat and snatch you out of the water, but they're going to help you. A good mentor is going to guide you and know you and also like help you when you're about to slip. you know?
Amazing.
Sometimes we need that slip. Absolutely. Sometimes we need that slip. You know, Linda and Colleen Proctor told me not to quit my job, but I quit my job.
Right.
Um, right. So, but yeah, with mentorship, it really, really, really is so supportive because depending on the industry you're into, sometimes entrepreneurship can feel very alone, like you're very in it alone. And it's helpful to have people that can guide you, that you can turn to, that you trust, and that you know have your best intentions at heart. And then it's beautiful to then turn around and become a mentor and help
Yes.
people too, like you're doing with this podcast and me being here to share. Like that's the gift that keeps on giving.
Giving back. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, okay. So I'm going to pivot a little bit here to talk about COVID because it was an interesting. It was a very when we talk about entrepreneurship and having to be flexible and kind of roll with the punches and figure out the next thing. It's interesting for me to find out from entrepreneurs that started their journeys before COVID and are still through, because I think, that pandemic was or is, depending on how you feel about it, like one of the biggest shifts culturally and in the business world that society has ever made. So, how did you navigate through the pandemic, being being a life coach, an energy healer, where meeting in person was important, right? So talk to me a little bit about how you navigated through the few years of COVID-19 on your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely challenging because a lot of people needed help. Like a lot of people in their personal lives, in their business lives or work lives, financial lives, like they were being hit. Um, I again, like I could see the divine perfection in everything because just before COVID, I had my daughter. She was about 2 when COVID started. Um, Part of my desire as you know becoming a mom who's an entrepreneur was I want to create the life so that I can be there for all the special moments. And so I didn't want to be working 5 days a week. I wanted the balance so that I could be with her. And I started to plant seeds of like, I want to be working at home a little bit more. And so, right around the time, just before COVID happened, I was starting to transition into a little bit more online work. So, it was kind of like divinely timed. However, yeah, there there was that constriction around like I really want to see people in person. The work that I do can both be effective online or in person, but it was like I really wanted to see people in person and it just wasn't available. And people weren't available for it either. So there was definitely a slowing down point that happened. And for me too, like I I got hit with a lot of fear during COVID.
Sure.
I was trying to navigate it as best as I could for my 2-year-old to like still keep her innocence because she was young. I didn't necessarily have to explain to her what was happening. She was 2. The most I had to do was explain, oh, the park is broken, they're fixing it.
Right.
Um, but like other kids at different ages, you'd have to explain a little bit more. But yeah, it was. I was met with a lot of fear because I'm like, how do I protect my daughter from whatever crazy stuff is happening right now? And what ended up happening for me was like I met at a wall of fear, and that wall of fear seeped in. So yeah, so when I met that fear that showed up for me as the human, me as the mother, it started to seep into my mindset. And so unconsciously and energetically, I was walking around in a bubble of fear for a couple of years, which plummeted a lot of things. So again, tying back into the conversation around mindset, like we do have to work on our mindset as entrepreneurs because when we hit those spots, when we hit challenges, if we're not attentive to our mindset, it can dip us. And I definitely dipped through COVID. I hit some tender spots. Business was slow, things were tough.
Right.
And I'm just coming out of that now, which is great. I'm grateful for all the shifts that are happening. But it really showed me, how important it is that I'm taking care of myself, I'm taking care of my mindset, and that's going to allow me to take care of my business. Because yeah, it did impact my life, in terms of the sense of like, yeah, people there were still people coming, but like people were more reserved with it because everybody had no idea what was happening,
Right.
and everybody was stuck online, everybody was working online, so people were like, I don't want to do like a healing session online, I would love to see in person. So yeah, it's definitely impacted things. And I kept going. Like I knew that if I just keep going, and it was a tough few years, and there were times that I was like, what am I even doing? I'm like about to give up. Like what's happening?
Right.
And I just kept going forward. I just kept holding the vision. For me, it's like I know that this is not just an idea to start a business one day. It's like, I'm here to serve. I'm here to use my life to help other people. So I just kept holding on to that and kept moving forward.
Beautiful. Right on. So on
Yeah.
that note, segue so well. So I was doing a little bit of research, and I'm really intrigued by, on your website, you have an opening line that says, heal your family lineage and embrace your true self. So just to give people
Mhm.
a little bit more of an idea about what you're about and what your practice is about, do you want to explain or deep dive into that a little bit, what it means?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so in my personal belief, we are souls living human experiences, and we have divinely orchestrated it all. So I believe that we choose our family, we choose our family lineages, we choose everything that happens to us in life, is really for the evolution of our souls. And so we choose our family lineages because there are lessons within it for us to learn, to heal, to grow from on a soul level so that we can live like our most soul aligned lives. Um, a lot of us, you know, come from lineages with pain and trauma and suffering or whatever it is. Like every lineage has something. And also, we come from lineages with beautiful gifts and talents and things like that as well. But sometimes, we are faced with things in our life that are hard to overcome. And we may not necessarily know why they're hard to overcome. But when we look through the lineage, we can see that this could be something that was inherited. So the study of epigenetics has proven that we inherit things from our ancestors, whether it's an emotional trauma, whether it's a physical pain, things like that. We can inherit these from our ancestors before us. Anything that's left unhealed gets passed down. So the personal work, the real work is to look at ourselves, look at our stuff. What are the things that we meet that don't feel in alignment with our true self, our soul aligned self? And how can we work towards healing that so that we don't pass that down to the future generations? And so I work with a lot of women and some men, but mostly women I work with, um, where we take a look at the conditioning, we take a look at the patterns that have been keeping them stuck, and we work through the lineage to heal those. Because yeah, a lot of the times it is just passed down to us, and then we're more open and receptive to also receive the gifts, the talents, the beautiful things that our ancestors have passed down to us too. So
Awesome. That's
yeah.
amazing. Great. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. Okay, so next going to pivot again because again, entrepreneurs, we are all humans, we're people. It's although, sometimes I think we have to be in our business 100% of the time. Work-life balance is important. So in your downtime, what interests do you have, hobbies outside of your business that kind of keep you motivated and drive to succeed in business, but also to have that life on the side? What are some things you're interested in?
Yeah, I love everything got to do with Mother Earth, nature. I love being outside. I've really like discovered this year particularly, like, I really love going to the beach. Never really
Right on.
realized that
Yeah.
about my, but I'm like, I really love a good beach day. Love just spending time outside, going to the forest. I have this really special forest up here in Guelph that I love to go to. And then one of the things too that I just really, really love, and it still ties into my business, which is kind of cool, is like I'm just so thirsty for knowledge of self. Like I love to discover who I am on new layers because I'm always growing, I'm always expanding, I'm always becoming the next level of myself. I love to learn about myself. And so whether that is through reading or writing or attending a seminar or course or something like that, those things just light me right up. I also have a strange love for grocery shopping.
There you go.
I really enjoy going grocery shopping with my daughter. We have such a fun time. We sometimes go cruise for samples at Costco.
Nice.
Because I don't know, it's a random fact that I just kind of love grocery shopping. And so during the pandemic, that was an interesting one too.
Right.
It was like
Yes, of course.
it was all weird going grocery shopping, but yeah, yeah, those are a few things. But anything in connection with myself or in connection with community, I love connecting with people. I love being in relationship with people, whether it's a work colleague, a friend, a partner, something like that. I love relationships.
Nice. Excellent.
Mhm.
And so, as we mentioned before, this you're on the podcast today because you reached out to your network to see. So, is there anything you want to share kind of that you're excited about? What's next for your business? Anything going on that you want to make sure people know about?
Yeah. So, what I'm most excited about is really shifting into a lot more community based work. One of my superpowers definitely is creating community. Um, And so I am excited about creating some group offerings again that are going to be coming out in the fall. One of them particularly is called the Maternal Line. And this for me is like a legacy project. I'm actually creating it with this may sound weird. This is where I'll get woo with you, but I'm creating it with my deceased grandmother.
Okay.
My maternal grandmother has shared with me, she's shown me within my maternal line the spaces that are asking for healing and my attention. And then she started to show me just a lot of the other connections in the maternal line for other people that can really benefit from this work. So this is a legacy project I'm really, really looking forward to um, launching and creating because I feel that there's such a deep rooted connection for men and women, but like from our maternal lines. We all come from a womb, and depending on how our mother experienced herself during pregnancy, those emotions, those things get encoded into our nervous system when we're growing inside of her. And so, really taking people hand by hand and walking through the path of healing so that they can be living the most soul aligned life so that they can go out there and serve their purpose really, really lights me up. So I'm really excited about that. And then just seeing what else wants to be birthed from my business. I always, it's, it is its own life. It has its own life. And so I always just trust what shows up and follow through on it.
Excellent. Excellent. So before I get you out of here and wrapping up soon, because I know you're very busy, appreciate your time. You've already given some amazing insights and nuggets to aspiring entrepreneurs, but what advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
Mm-hmm. My advice would be if there is a spark inside of you to create something, you have a responsibility to create that. And no matter what you get met with, whether it's rejection or fear or like people thinking you're like losing your mind and you're going crazy because your idea is so radical, there's a seed that's planted within you that is for only you. And whatever these inspirations, these ideas, these things that you're being guided to create, do it because we have no idea how supported we are until we walk to the edge of the cliff and spirit says jump. And if you jump in faith, knowing you may not be able to see that net down below, but there'll be a net that will catch you. There is so much magic and so much beauty that can happen for you. And I really believe that we all have unique talents and gifts, and we all have something to offer this world with our life, whether that's through a business that we create or just being the human that you are and being a kind human on the street to people you'll never see again. Always follow that feed, always follow that inspiration, because it's divinely inspired, these ideas that we have to create. Just like your idea 2 years ago to create this podcast, like that's divine intervention, in my opinion. So yeah, just continue to follow those steps.
That's amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much. So Melissa, where can people get a hold of you? If they want to reach out, learn more about you? Yeah, what's your contact information?
Yeah, so my website is melissamaher.ca. You can learn about some of my offerings. It is a little bit under construction right now. I have to update it, but I have some great information there about who I am, some of the offerings that I hold. Instagram, I'm at Healing with Melissa. Healing with Melissa was already
Don't worry, I'll put it
taken.
all up in the on the podcast for those people viewing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Facebook, I think it's healing, facebook.com/healing with Melissa. Um, and so you can connect with me there. And for anybody who just wants to like even just ask for advice in terms of the entrepreneurial journey, you can definitely DM me or send me an email. And I'm happy to just connect in that way too.
Excellent. Well, Melissa, thank you so much. I'll get you out here, but this has been for me, it's been a blessed conversation for sure. I've really enjoyed reconnecting, and I wish you nothing but success. I hope that your journey over this next little bit with your endeavors is everything that you hope it would be. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much, James. It's very special to have this conversation with you, knowing that we've known each other for decades. So thank you
Decades.
for
Oh,
having me.
there it is. How old we are again. All right, Melissa, take care. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Okay. I told you, was I right? Thank you again, Melissa. Thank you for sharing your journey, your story, your advice for entrepreneurs. It was really great catching up with you. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. So again, if you want to get a hold of Melissa, as she mentioned, you can check out her website, melissamaher.ca, or you can find her on Instagram at Healing with Meliss. And as always, remember, you can find me, JFKsWORLD.com, on all socials. I got TikTok, JFK's World _ podcast, Instagram, Facebook page. I've added a LinkedIn page, so make sure you check out that and follow that if you haven't yet. And as always, the videos can be found on YouTube, or the podcast can be found wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you again for listening. This is JFK's World, and thank you for letting me be a part of yours.